Hey everyone, welcome back to the YOUnify podcast. My name is Brandyn Keating. I'm the co-founder and CEO of YOUnify, a nonprofit helping you flourish and thrive, and I'm the host of our podcast. I'm really delighted to be here today with Jonathan Harper. Jonathan is one of the contributors to the edited volume Leadership for Flourishing that we talk about a lot here on the podcast. And he's also a social entrepreneur, the CEO of Future Foundations, co-founder of Global Social Leaders, and founder of Canteen, let me get that correctly, a program turning school canteens into community hubs to address food insecurity and strengthen communities. Jonathan, welcome. So glad to have you here today. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Brandyn. So good to be here, and it's great to see the book in physical. And I've got mine here now as well. Fantastic. So it's a proud moment to see it and to be able to see all of the contributors' stories. And it's been so great watching all the other podcasts. So thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. And Jonathan, before we dive into all of the amazing things that you're doing professionally, would love to learn just a little bit more about you. And I'm wondering, what was young Jonathan like? And how did you become this person bringing all of these amazing leadership and community change programs into the world? How did you become you?
Brilliant question. Thank you, Brandyn. Well, I think it goes back to my school, and I think I was fortunate enough that in my school that service was a really central part of the school and the environment. And just at the age of sort of 11, 12, they had what was called the St. Vincent de Paul Society, where you went and visited the elderly on a Thursday night. And they had a president in the sixth form who ran that. And they had about 50 of us that went out and visited every week and had tea and biscuits and a conversation.
Lovely.
With older adults in our community. And I think that experience has inspired me. And almost now when I'm working with schools, I almost think back to how it was cool to care that young people, 50 of us, went out in minibuses every week and went and visited. And I still remember the point where I turned up one week and the lady said, "Oh, sorry, dear, I'm having my hair cut this week, so I can't see you, but I bought your biscuits." And I was like, I'd always thought that, she always had biscuits in, but she actually was waiting for us, bought us biscuits, and it was something that was important in her week. So I think that sort of stuck with me over time. And I suppose, and then later, I suppose in school, we also had a trip to Lourdes. And again, that sort of was a similar sort of experience where looking after people with disabilities was massively sort of formative in my personal development as well.
Amazing. And so for somebody who maybe knows you through your professional life, what might they be surprised to know about you? What secret talents or hobbies or things are there about Jonathan that would help us know you better?
Oh, that's a good one. I suppose, probably going back, I was once I did rowing at school, and did a lot of sport. So that sort of, I suppose, has sort of gone into my DNA, and I think even just having that experience each week of just going out onto a river and having that meditative time out there. And having that experience has probably built me sort of as a person and as well. And just in terms of just building resilience, I just think it's been a sport that's kind of set me up for life.
Beautiful. And, thinking about your journey as a social entrepreneur and your focus on developing young leaders, which I just absolutely love, because I feel like, that's just so impactful for everything that the world is going to be. What actually shaped your belief that young people can be powerful leaders for change?
But he was at university, so I got exposed to an enterprise society at university called Enter, and I joined that. And then the idea of that enterprise society is that you helped other university students be entrepreneurial. So I got involved in that, and I was almost mentored by postgrads, and that was good for me. But then I then helped other students do it, and then I got introduced to this US organization that was then called SIFE, but now is called Enactus, and it helps university students be entrepreneurial in the community. And when I graduated, I then became their program manager, and was helping university students set up social action projects, and then was taken by that organization to the US to see how university students in more established and active societies were running projects. And that's when I really saw, wow, look what university students can do. It's not just a bake sale. They were running whole social ventures, businesses, restaurants, and the school differentiated itself on its service. So I went to Drury University, I think in Springfield in the US, and drove up to it, and it said Drury University, the Enactus World Cup champion, and then it had a trophy cabinets of service trophies, and I was like, this is awesome. I'd never seen anything like that in the UK. So then that set me on a mission back in the UK to almost replicate how can we make universities differentiate themselves like that. And I'm always delighted when I now go to the University of Nottingham, who now has in their business school a trophy cabinet with all of their Enactus trophies. And a lot of people say, because I went there, that's down to me, but it wasn't. It was down to some amazing students who set up that society really, really well. And it went on to have quite a bit of success over many years, and sort of then inspired other universities across the UK to replicate that and almost see. And I caught up with business school recently with their dean, and they said social impact is how we want to differentiate this business school globally. And I was like, oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I love that shift in incentive structure. So good. So as I mentioned, you're a contributor to the book Leadership for Flourishing, and you talk about that a lot in your work. What does flourishing mean to you in the context of education and youth development?
For me, I think it's about young people finding their purpose and developing resilience and empathy. And I think those are the things that sometimes education doesn't develop, and that can lead to people not flourishing. Whilst actually, if we can engage with young people finding what they're truly excited about and inspired by, then their education flies and they fly.
Yeah, incredible. So in the chapter that you contributed to the book, you share some really powerful stories of young people leading social action projects around the world, largely through your Global Social Leaders program. I see you've got the sweatshirt. Love that.
Yeah. I live the t-shirt.
So could you share a little bit about what that program is and maybe a young leader that you've met through it who inspired you?
Yeah, sure. So Global Social Leaders is a social leadership program that I co-founded with Katie Granville-Chapman, who's also appeared on this podcast. And we co-founded Global Social Leaders to help young people be leaders in their lives, leaders in society. And we've supported young people all around the world to set up projects. In the book, we share just like 3 or 4 stories of students, and one of the ones we open with, which are, is truly inspiring, is some girls in Rwanda who spoke to veterans who are in a care home, and they couldn't travel out to the city, and they understood that they wanted to connect with the community and be mobile, so they helped build literally the road so that they could be wheeled out and could come back out into the community and reconnect. So that for me, service, real action, is what GSL is about. It's about young people realizing they could be leaders in their community, but they need to listen first. So it's not about what they need or what they want to do, what their project is. The great thing about that project is they went and met the community, understood and asked, what's the challenge, and then worked on a project from there.
I love that you're cultivating that capacity and interest in them to listen first to the community and respond. I feel like in so much of the adult world of endeavoring to do good in the world, sometimes very well-meaning people and organizations forget that step, and it's so critical. And so through the program, you've worked with thousands of student social entrepreneurs. Are there particular patterns or qualities that you consistently see in young people who step up to lead? Or maybe on the flip side of that coin, there are qualities that you could cultivate in any young person?
I suppose it's their sort of development of their confidence and their belief in themselves and the possibilities. The other side of it is also sometimes that they actually find it really hard. So almost sometimes it helps them almost be more humble
Yeah.
in realizing change is hard. And
Yeah.
those are things that we often share with them up front, that actually you're going to try and do this project. You're going to think it's easy. And then suddenly you're going to find that actually working together with other people, trying to do a project, trying to make real change happen, it's tough. And there is actually no right or wrong. It's not like school.
Right.
You can't score like a big, like, top grade and you can put all the energy in and it go wrong, and that's fine and that's great. And they're like, what? I'm like, failing is good, fail forward. So we're just trying to land these messages to them that actually trying to do something and pivoting and realizing that plan B can be better than plan A is what they need to learn in the real world, and that's what they're going to need to be doing. Whilst I think sometimes education and school teaches you about right, wrong, scoring high, top grades, whilst competitive, competing against individualism, whilst in the real world it's all about, you know, collaborating and working together and changing direction and responding to what you learn. And these are just, I suppose, different things. So hopefully I think they learn a little bit of empathy.
Yeah.
The big word that's sort of coming up recently for me is curiosity, and that's also a word that we're trying to kind of use more regularly, almost that we're challenging them to be more curious.
Yes.
I think too many young people are too comfortable in their own environments, their own worlds and their own echo chambers. So what we need is them to be much more curious about learning about others, learning about what they need and what they think, and kind of going into conversations with a sense of excitement and curiosity rather than defensiveness or and almost seeking to find and understand.
Yeah, the superpower of curiosity is something that we keep coming back to again and again in the podcast and in all of our work in flourishing. And I love that you're cultivating that in the young people, and that resilience as well, that ability to be resilient to setbacks. What do you think that adults and institutions often underestimate about young people's ability to lead meaningful change?
I think they often underestimate that they can do it, and they can do it independently, and that they need to be spoon-fed to make it happen. And almost if they trust in the young people, they will often go way beyond your expectations, but you do need to put in the support, the space, the time to kind of do it right in order to see it. I suppose we try and overcome that by showing teachers and young people what other young people around the world are doing in all different contexts and similar contexts. So we have a project portfolio on our website where we publish the students' projects, their videos, their reports every year. So there's about 500 of them now on the website.
Wow.
And we say to teachers, look, you can look up any school, any sustainable development goal. You can find probably a similar context to your school. And that's the place to start, is almost to see the possibility so that you can open your minds of you as an educator and the students that you can do this, you can make change happen. And I suppose that's our thing, is that I think they underestimate that they can or they will or they want to, because they are almost used to push them. Whilst actually, I think if you can get out of the way and create the space, that's where, again, the flourishing happens, that they start to work together and make change happen and find themselves.
Yeah. And so you recently because apparently leading a global network of youth change makers wasn't enough. You recently launched Can Team, which turns school canteens into community dining hubs. So what inspired you to do that, and what problem were you trying to solve when you created it?
That goes back to 2017, and we organised a response to the unfortunate incident of the Grenfell Tower tragedy, which was a fire that happened in London, and it meant that a school next to it was closed, and we were asked to run a summer school. To give a place and space for families to gather and to cerebrally develop over the summer. So we put on a summer school for 4 weeks. We had author days, and we had all sorts of activities, and we had residential trips. But on Wednesdays, I did community dining in the school playground, and we opened the doors of the school. Families came in, we had like football mascots, we had face painting, we had food. And to be honest, it was the easiest activity I've organized. Like our programs, almost coaching circles and staff and curriculum and materials and workshops and activities. This was just tables and food, and the impact for me was phenomenal, because parents were coming up to me saying, I'm going to book Jimmy onto the residential next week, after talking to us, after meeting us, after building trust. So just sort of stepping back, like actually creating that space or redefining what even a school is, I think is quite important work right now. That I think the trust between parents, families, and schools needs to be brought back together. We almost need to reimagine, I think, almost the brand of the school.
Yeah.
And there's so that's where sort of Can Team came from. Is that's what we're trying to do, is almost say after school, young people are going to be the team that run it, and then the Can is community, gathering over activities and a nutritious meal. And then we have a Can Do team, which is the young people, the crew, who then host and run the event. They don't necessarily do the cooking, but we have had them do the cooking.
Yeah.
But the idea is that their actually main responsibility is to plan, theme, host, entertain, welcome, gather. So when their guests arrive, which can be parents from the community, local pensioners, feeder schools, primary schools coming in with children that might never have been into a secondary school before. They're hosting them, they welcome them, they register them, they sit them down, they play with them. And King Solomon Academy in Paddington, I remember seeing like the sixth formers like there holding the babies while the parents were having a nice meal.
Wow.
And so all of this, we sort of sit in it. Yeah, it's quite different to GSL, where we say to the young people, what project do you want to do? In this instance, we're saying to the young people, you are going to run a social restaurant, and you're running it in like 6 weeks' time. And now we're going to help you plan that, and you're going to be taking on these roles. Which roles do you want to have? But we still give them that same sort of agency over their choice, over their roles, over their planning. And we see very sort of similar, I suppose, developments sort of happening.
So what have you learned so far from the projects in the schools?
I suppose when we started, a lot of people young people won't stay.
Oh, really?
They don't want to be at school. They want to go home. And then people won't want to eat in school canteens, and they won't want to eat school food. But between sort of working with the school or bringing in different chefs or putting on some menus, we've had really positive feedback on the food, with people rating it better than Nando's, hopefully more healthier too. But on every aspect, that almost students and families have really appreciated being able to gather and come together. There was lots of barriers. People aren't used to now eating together or even going out or staying out. So this is very uncomfortable. But actually, when they do it, they go, that was really good. I really enjoyed that. And I think someone said, there's a McDonald's campaign that came out last week where it said, aren't you pleased you stayed in, kind of as the sticker or something. And I think we kind of like are the opposite, like, aren't you pleased you stayed out? Like and like last Friday, I was actually in my children's school. So we finally, after running this for 2 years, I brought it local. And there was 100 people in the school canteen after school, year 6, 10-year-olds walking along with trolleys, cleaning away, serving soup, and singing karaoke at the end of the thing and really enjoying being in that space with their friends and with their families, and parents not even having to look after the kids because they're busy doing the work. And the parents
Wow.
are being looked after and served, and they're just sitting, having good conversations and a meal. And I think in today's world where we're sort of stressed and tired and stretched, and then the food from that week at that meal last Friday, I then took takeaway home and then fed my family the next day, and my parents as well.
Oh, wow. I love this. And so it sounds like you're really, helping people in a supported way step out of their comfort zones to rebuild and build new social fabric. Beyond the meals, what role do you see schools playing as community hubs as it moves forward? What is your vision and what's your dream?
Yeah, I mean, that's where I really do see that. I think schools are becoming a place, and they are almost becoming social infrastructure, but they're not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily being enabled, supported, or funding to do so. So we almost need to flip that on its head and go, actually, if we were to rebuild, or when we start with new schools, how do we actually build it out from almost thinking community first? Does the dining hall sit at the front? Does the theatre have a doorway to the front of the school, so that actually some of these resources could be used 7 days a week by communities, rather than normally how they are. They almost, you have to go through reception and go through the school and through gates and buildings to even to get to any of these sort of facilities. And there's a great example, Edgy City in London, where they built a youth zone,
Mm-hmm.
offices and a school, but the school uses the youth zone
Oh,
as their
wow.
sports club. But basically, it's a school sports gym, but rather than having it called the school gym and the community using it, is actually is a youth zone, and that's open 7 days a week. And then the school it just gets access to those facilities. So I almost see a future where schools might almost be smaller, tighter,
Interesting.
focusing in on their academics and what they're good at, and then that they feed in and work with almost an ecosystem of shared resources around them. And that
Mm.
could be, even working with care homes and nurseries and theatres and businesses and those kinds of things. So I think for me, that's the future. That at the moment we're moving in a direction where we're very much kind of ring fencing off and trying to focus on the A to C's, or 5 A to C's. And
Yeah.
say to kids, what do you want to get in your GCSEs? And they go 5 A to C's. I was like, do you want 5 A's or 5 C's? And they're like, well, it's just 5 A to C's is good, isn't it? I was like, well, that's very different. And I said, why is it 5? And they're like, well, that's good. I was like, well, who said it was good? How many GCSEs do you do? And they said, oh, well, 8. I was like, well, why have you set 5? And they're like, well, that's good. I was like, so a minister has said that that's success. So now
Mm-hmm.
you've now parroted out success from there. So for me, we need to kind of reframe, rethink, like what is school and what is that environment, and how do we sort of build it out, where I think there's a great future of school UCL report that looks at future schools, and it almost says we need sort of cathedral level thinking, like 100-year thinking, almost
Yeah.
big ambition, to almost go, what are the schools of the future and how are they developing the global citizens? And I suppose that brings it back, is almost I see GSL and Canteen almost coming together in sort of different ways to really sort of help and onboard
Yeah.
schools to bring about change. And one's doing it through food and after school, and one's doing it through project-based learning and social action projects. But the two, I think, are very complementary to a almost like a rich sort of academic education, where I think we almost need to be being like getting the education, like focusing on those academics stronger, but then also then spending more time in space with AI, enabling us to almost spend more time and space on service, social action, creativity, the arts, and food. And food needs to be at the heart of every school.
Food at the heart of every school. Such a great community building principle. And Jonathan, for people who are inspired by what they're hearing, maybe they want to know how they can help or how they can connect with you or replicate this in their own community, what should they do? How can they connect with you, or how can they help support?
Sure. Well, thank you for the opportunity. Well, global social leaders. So, like, visit globalsocialleaders.com, and then we invite people to be global goals heroes. So, like, we call them GG heroes, and basically that's where they will give feedback to our students on their projects. So that's an opportunity we have, and then we also have opportunities to be judges and also guest speakers, and that can all be done virtually. So anybody, anywhere in the world, can help us and support our projects and our young people in our schools. And then Canteam is canteam.org. And again, if you'd like to bring Canteam to your school or your community, then please do get in touch. We've had like parents get in touch going, I want to bring it to my school. And then we've partnered with them and piloted it with them. So far, we've been running it in the UK, but we're really keen to kind of get our first pilots outside of the UK happening soon.
Fantastic. So for folks listening, watching, we will have in the YouTube description and across our socials the links for you to connect with, support, get involved with Canteam and Global Social Leaders, and to connect with Jonathan. If you have been finding this podcast useful, we really invite you to like, share, subscribe. It really helps the information get to more people. So that's one simple thing that you can do right now to make a difference. And Jonathan, a last quick question for you. What advice do you have for young people who want to create positive change in your community? Like, if there was just one thing that a young person could do who doesn't know where to begin, something simple, maybe even right after hearing this podcast, where could they start?
Well, interestingly, in the context of the challenging environment we're in now, back in February, we went to Dubai and we worked with 24 schools, and we had 240 students in the room. And we said to them, bring an item that you care about into the room and share what it is, why you care about that thing, and then use that as the spark to inspire you to think about what is it, what change do you want to make in the world. So for me, it's almost by reflecting back on what you care or what inspires you or who or what, use that as do that inner work, and then you can then and then go from there. Then seek to understand about what you care about, what the issue is, and then go and learn about it and be curious, and then take those first steps. And I suppose just recognize that if you want to run a marathon, you don't start by running it, you start by putting your trainers on and stepping outside. So just by taking those little steps, that builds up and momentum builds up, and soon you'll look back and realize you've come on a great journey. And don't give up. A change is hard, but it's worth it.
Worth it. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Jonathan. Thanks to everybody who's listening or watching. We look forward to seeing y'all next time. And thanks again, Jonathan. Really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for the opportunity.
Of course. Yeah. Will I see you at Harper?